Let's turn to Russia and Ukraine, and this was one of the biggest points of difference between you and President Trump, who has expressed an ambivalence about NATO, who I don't know where he stands on continued aid to Ukraine. His vice presidential pick, J.D. Vance, is one of the leading skeptics of continued aid to Ukraine. In 2022, he said, "I don't really care what happens to Ukraine." Do you have any concerns about what's going to happen when and if Donald Trump takes office when it comes to Ukraine and Russia? And do you think J.D. Vance represents the present and the future of the Republican Party on these foreign policy issues?
Well, I worked alongside President Trump at the time on all of these issues, and I can tell you he was actually very hard on Russia, whether it was sanctions, whether it was expelling diplomats, all of those things. So I saw what he did. I also know that he was the one that ordered arms and equipment to go to Ukraine even before he left office. So the record that he has was one that was strong. It was one of deterrence. It was one where Putin didn't invade. Obama, they invaded Crimea. You look at Biden, a lot happened. Not only did Afghanistan fall, but you saw Russia become much more aggressive, and we've seen China become more aggressive. I know that Trump kept dictators at bay, and that's what I hope he will continue to do.
You're not worried at all about NATO?
I will always be vocal about the fact that America can never be so arrogant to think we don't need friends. We need a lot of friends, and to get a friend, you have to be a friend. We need to have the backs of our allies. With Ukraine, there should be no space between us. I don't think we need to give them cash, but they have asked for the equipment and ammunition they need to win. We can't allow any Russian aggression. We can't allow any Russian appeasement. When it comes with Israel, the same thing. We need to make sure that we know the difference between terrorists and those that are our friends. This is about moral clarity. Standing with Ukraine, standing with Taiwan, standing with Israel, that's moral clarity. That's what I want President Trump to have. I will always be vocal about that. Our NATO allies, should they be doing more? We should always push them to do more. But we should always let them know that we're going to stand strong together, because when we do that, that's what makes Russia nervous. That's what makes China nervous. That's what makes Iran nervous. And that's what we have to do to deter and prevent war going forward.
I'm sure you saw that the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, who you know, praised Trump's pick of J.D. Vance.
I think that there's a division in the Republican Party on where we should be on foreign policy, especially, we've seen that play out with Ukraine. What I will tell you is when Russia gets a little bit, they want a little bit more and a little bit more. And so that should send a warning sign to Trump and to Vance to go and show, no, we're going to stand for America. We're not going to stand for Russia, and we're going to stand with Ukraine because that's the right thing to do. I hope they do that.
And you've talked about how China looks at how the United States deals with Ukraine and Russia in terms of their context of Taiwan and wanting to seize Taiwan. Do you think the Chinese, looking at what Trump and Vance, their positions on Ukraine, are anticipating, looks like they're not going to support Ukraine, maybe we should take Taiwan?
I think the Chinese are looking at what Biden and Harris did. I think the Chinese and the Russians saw when Afghanistan fell that we were just giving it up. I think they saw that when Russia and Ukraine got into their war, what happened? America kind of stepped back and started having this debate on whether we should even be standing with Ukraine. I think Russia wanted a distraction, and we saw Israel and Iran, and now we're seeing that the vice president wouldn't even stand with one of our best friends in a speech, and now there's this issue on, are we going to fight and be there for Israel? It's an unthinkable thing that Biden and Harris started. It's something that Trump and Vance will need to fix, because the only way democracy wins is when we push off dictators and we fight against the tyranny. Right now, we're not being a good friend. Look at Ukraine. We were the ones that told them to give up their nukes.
Back during the Clinton years.
You look back in the 90s, we were the ones that told them to give up their nukes because we said we would have their back.
Right.
Are we having their back?
Well,
that's the question. That's what I would say to anyone.
I'm not here to defend the Biden administration's policy on anything, but is it not just empirically true that they have given a tremendous amount of funding to Ukraine and a tremendous amount of funding to Israel for both of these conflicts?
I think, but it's been delayed. You look at Ukraine, it's been waiting and waiting, and Republicans were part to blame on that. When it comes to Israel, I don't understand at all what Biden and Harris did. The idea that they would go and pull back something that they had promised is,
You're talking about the big dumb bombs.
yes, it's tone deaf, because here, when Israel's fighting America's enemies, these same enemies that say death to America, the same ones that are on college campuses funding these protests, why are we going to allow that to happen? And so you have to look at what Biden and Harris's record is before you look at what you're going to ask Trump and Vance to do, because first you've got to look at the differences. There's a major difference there. And to me, keeping America safe is our number one priority. And right now, it's not about Republican or Democrat. It's about, is America ready to be a friend to those who have been friends to us? And do we have the moral clarity to see who our enemies are and make sure we do everything we can to prevent war in the process?
So how do you respond to those who say, look, Netanyahu's not even popular in Israel? I mean, I think it's like 70% disapproval of the Israeli public against Netanyahu. We have hostage families criticizing Prime Minister Netanyahu for not doing enough. And there are people who love Israel dearly who are very concerned about how Netanyahu is how he's prosecuting this war against Hamas in terms of all the innocent people who have been killed, and also what he's allowing to happen on the West Bank. Surely people can be critical of Netanyahu and still love Israel.
Well, I will be the first one to say Americans should not weigh in on who is the head of Israel. We just need to support Israel regardless of who the head is. But I will tell you what I saw when I went to Israel. On the morning of October 7th, when those people in the kibbutz looked out at those fields at 6:40 in the morning, 3,000 members of Hamas came in, took over their neighborhoods, took over the concert site, butchered people, robbed from them, burned people alive, and took people hostages. You know who joined them? Thousands of Palestinian citizens. That's what no one's talking about. They looted, they murdered, and they helped. And in many cases, I talked to hostage survivors, they took them back and sold them to Hamas. So why would Netanyahu or anyone in Israel trust Hamas or the Palestinians? And Hamas has said, we're going to do it again. So look at it from the perspective of an Israeli. They don't want October 7th to happen again. They want the hostages to come home. By the way, 8 American hostages there, 5 that we know are alive, but all 8 need to come home. Why are we not obsessed with those hostages right now? Why are we not obsessed with making sure it doesn't happen? But we should not be arguing with Israel when they are so worried about trusting Palestinians or making sure that Hamas never rules Gaza again. Those are fair things. If that had happened to America, we would be twice as angry. Everybody ran to Israel's defense on October 7th. But now that Israel's fighting back, you're going to condemn them? It's nothing different than America would do if we were in the same place. And I think in order to be a friend, we have to assume, what if that was us?